Now that we've created our Databricks service, I want to talk you through the architecture. As you know, Azure Databricks is a managed service on the Azure cloud. As a developer, you may not need to understand how it works under the hood, but it is better to understand the architecture so that you can reason out about where your data is stored and also where your computer is located. Databricks architecture is basically split into two parts, one called the control plane and another one called the data plane. Control plane is located in Databricks' own subscription. This contains the Databricks UX and also the cluster manager. It's also home to the Databricks file system DBFS and also metadata about clusters, files mounted, etc. Data plane is located in the customer subscription. When you create a Databricks service in Azure, there are 4 resources created in your subscription: a virtual network, a network security group for the virtual network, Azure Blob Storage for the default storage, and also a Databricks workspace. We've just created the Databricks service, so let's switch over to the Azure portal and have a look at those. Here we are in the Azure portal. Let's go to all resources. You can either go from here or you can go to the menu on the top left and then click on all resources. I've got plenty of resources from other projects here, so I'm going to just do a filter on resource group and I'm going to search for Databricks course because that's what we created. So as you can see here, we got the 4 resources we talked about. The first one is your workspace that we created, and then the other 3 are created by Databricks itself. They are still in our subscription, so that is in my pay-as-you-go subscription, but we didn't create these resource groups. Databricks creates the resource groups behind the scenes, and that will have the virtual network as we talked about, and the network security group, and also the default storage account for Databricks. So these are the 4 resources we saw in the presentation, and these are created by Databricks. I hope that makes sense. Let's get back to the presentation now. The Databricks users, such as data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts, will use Active Directory single sign-on to access the Databricks service. When a user requests for a cluster to be created, the Databricks Cluster Manager will create the required virtual machines in our subscription via the Azure Resource Manager. So none of the customer data leaves our subscription. Temporary outputs, such as running a display command or data for managed tables, are stored in the Azure Blob Storage, and the processing also happens within the VNet in our subscription. The Azure Blob Storage we have shown here is the default storage, or otherwise called the DBFS root, and it's not recommended as a permanent data storage. For that, we can mount other storage accounts from our subscription, which we'll talk in detail in the coming lessons. You may not have understood all the concepts explained here, and we'll be discussing these components in details in the coming lessons. So I would recommend you to come back to this lesson one more time once you've gone through those. The key takeaway from this lesson is that our data always resides and processed in our subscription, and we have full control over it. Hope that makes sense. I'll see you in the next lesson.